As often happens, everything old is new again. And I think the arcade experience and the fact that it brings a social dynamic together with that, people can come together and experience gaming as a group, it's a great time. It's just, once again, showing that gaming is here to stay in all its various facets.
A lot of people are familiar that retro is back now, almost more popular than it was in its own era. So Ready Player One, Wreck-It Ralph, Stranger Things, all these things are just really bringing back the momentum.
Particularly in this generation, people who are buying the new consoles have also been the ones who grew up with the old consoles. So no matter how many real, new consoles come out, you will always bow down to Senpai, which is the things that created the legacy that brought you up until now. And so I think the reason why there's NES emulators out there is because you always want to remember the past while still being excited for the future.
There seems to be every 5 years or so a wave of nostalgia, and it's really big this time around. So we've seen a lot of people in the last couple years, year and a half, really trying to reconnect with their youth.
Nostalgia is like such a powerful force. So for a lot of people right now, I mean, even making an indie game in 8-bit, and if you can really polish your mechanics and make people remember what it was like being a kid playing at the arcade, it's just so strong. And it's interesting because it's not just the adults. It's also young kids. Like, you go to camp, there's all these kids learning how to do 8-bit and pixel art, and I'm like, how do you know that this is a thing? Because I figured you've been watching Pixar movies, you'd want to make 3D art, but they understand that this has its own appeal. So in a way, it's almost timeless. It's not just resurging, but I think it's around to stay, because games are such a social experience, like for a community to build together and play together and eat together and drink together. It's the perfect place.
I think there is a magic around gaming. And gaming in the arcade has the added value of being a very social experience. For the longest time, certainly with video gaming, before the advent of networks and network gaming, it was a rather solitary experience.
Nowadays, as a gamer, I think it's really this feeling of nostalgia and really community, because you have this tangible thing that attracts other people. If you're playing a game really well, let's say you're, leveling up over and over and over again, you will have a crowd around you, and that sort of camaraderie, that feeling that other people are in the game with you, is something that's kind of going away these days. And I think it's having that sort of nostalgic feeling of remembering what it's like to just kick it, play a co-op game, have someone next to you, maybe it was a sibling on the couch, and you remember those feelings. But I think no matter where gaming goes, I think the arcade cabinet will always remain.
We're seeing a lot of people who didn't really enjoy the golden age of arcades now buying. So these are people who, played Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. They're starting to become customers as they buy their first houses, get some expendable income. So we're starting to see it skew younger. I think really what's happening is arcades are kind of cementing their footprint in history, and that's why we're seeing more corporate companies buy them, just because it's more of an iconic symbol now of the 80s.
I think for people who grew up with these games, grew up going to arcades themselves, being able to buy one of these systems, have it tangibly in your house, that is the dream, right? And I think because we grew up with it when we were kids and now we're adults and we got money to spend, we'll spend it on things like this. It's incredible. I think we live in a really awesome generation that appeases to niches like that, where it was an impossible sort of thing 30 years ago. 10 years from now, I think there will be so many more consoles, so many more independent consoles coming out, but there will always be an homage to this generation, because without this generation, we wouldn't be here now. And also, the 80s were freaking cool. I mean, come on.